In a world where darkness reigns supreme, can the sweet life ever truly come without a cost? This is the question at the deeply layered center of this year's monster horror hit Sinners, and the one we'll be tackling on today's episode of Tastemaker. I'm your host, Harrison Richland. This is the show where we make meals out of movies, and if the pairing we're preparing doesn't have you screaming with hunger, well, I guess I wouldn't be doing my job right now, would I? Hailing from Ryan Coogler, the filmmaker behind Fruitvale Station, Creed, and Marvel's Black Panther, Sinners marks his most personal film to date.
This is me at my most exposed artistically. This is me at a point as a filmmaker where I most know who I am as a person. It's the first film I've made where I felt like I was fully formed as a human being, so to speak, in terms of identity. And I needed the best people for this.
Stars frequent collaborator Michael B. Jordan in the dual roles of veterans turned gangsters, Smoke and Stack.
You heard of Smokestack Twins?
Of course.
And is set in 1932 during the tail end of Prohibition in the Jim Crow South. After robbing both the Italian and Irish mobs in Chicago, the siblings make a triumphant return to their hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi, where they plan to open their own juke joint. Their cousin, budding musical talent Sammy Preacher Boy Moore, thinks this might be his chance to find freedom too. Not only from the work his family has been bound to for generations, but the religious fervor imposed on him by his zealous father as well.
Where you gotta be that's more important than being in the house of God.
It's not like Preacher Boy doesn't have his own connection to the spiritual, it's just more tied up in the blues than anything else.
Traveling, I don't know why the world I'm in.
Little does he or his cousins know the terror their actions will unleash, all on one fateful night that would change them each forever. Now there's a lot of different directions you can go with Sinners, so why choose just one thing? Instead, we're going to be going with a Blood Moon and Delta Blues trifle, composed of layers of red and blue velvet cake, blackberry compote, dark chocolate whiskey ganache, and a rosemary-infused whipped cream topping, all served in individual tumblers for that small touch of class. It may not be a focal point of the entire film, but an element that really stands out to me is that desire for Smoke and Stack to bring some of that elegance they experienced in Chicago back home with them, and to give their community a place they can escape the degradation they're typically exposed to. Coogler goes about unraveling this in ways subtle, like staging a oneer between the segregated grocery stores, each sitting across the street from one another and owned by the same family, and unsubtle, like Delroy Lindo's Delta Slim crossing paths with a chain gang full of old friends.
Well, I came
Y'all
home,
get hands now.
King.
Hear me? Hold your hands.
My Lord.
I'm just going to take this opportunity to say that Delroy Lindo should have won an Oscar a long time ago, but Delta Slim may really be his masterpiece. Where he goes with the character, from comedic to tragic in the span of a few scenes, is a meal unto itself. As we start prepping this dessert, the first thing we want to do is steep our rosemary in the cream we are going to be whipping up for our topping later. Make sure these are mixed in and incorporated, and then we are going to cover and throw in the fridge. As that's steeping, let's preheat the oven to 350 and get that batter going for our red and blue velvet cakes, because they are going to need time to cool. Mix together the dry ingredients, our cake flour, baking soda, cocoa powder, and a little salt. Then beat the butter and sugar together until combined, and mix in the egg yolks, oil, vinegar, and vanilla extract. At this point, we are going to start incorporating our dry mix into our wet. Start by adding about a cup of our dry mix. Do it on a low setting so it doesn't go all over the place. And then also mix in a little bit of the buttermilk each time. Before adding your food dye and mixing in our egg whites, let's talk a little bit about the symbolism behind these two cakes. Sure, the colors can signify the obvious, like the outfits that separate Smoke and Stack, or the nature of blood to flow red in blue veins, but in conjuring an image of the mythic blood moon and Delta Blues music that ties sinners together, the base of our trifle aims to evoke a connection to other worlds and times that Coogler deftly captures throughout this film, especially in one mind-shattering scene of Preacher Boy performing that ends up setting a bloody night of violence in motion. Perfect timing to mix in first our red food dye, then in another bowl our blue dye. Finally, take the egg whites we separated our yolks from, whip until stiff, and fold half into each bowl. Now that they're nice and silky, spread the different colored mixes on separate 13x9 pans. We don't want to use round or square pans because we're looking for a thinner height on the cakes. This also means they'll cook up faster, so check after 20 minutes and then again after every 3 minutes or so. They should spring back when touched. That's good. And a toothpick stuck in the center should come back clean. Unfortunately, our heroes in Sinners won't be as lucky, as each is forced to sully their soul in order to defeat a vampiric evil that preys on the juke joint. Despite at first denying it entry, Stack eventually succumbs to the sins of both greed and lust, leading the group to be picked off one by one. It's all for the sake of acquiring a musical power Preacher Boy possesses, one that reawakens spirits. This proves a stunning allegory for not only music's impact on any given culture, but also its effect on individuality and how often that's sacrificed for the sake of a monolithic ideology. This is the conflict Preacher Boy has been drawn into, as someone whose gift rebels against the purity his lineage demands, yet also creates a transcendent link between past, present, and future. In many ways, this ties into Coogler's own relationship to art as something that can reach across eras and is worth sacrificing for, yet still comes with its own demons to face.
I was very interested in that irony of people dealing with such intense oppression and such intense difficulty of life, but still somehow maintaining the zest for life and an affirmation of their humanity and maintaining their agency.
This is also where the filling for our trifle ties into the film, as both our compote and ganache serve to represent the dark forces that await us no matter our chosen path. In a saucepan over medium-low heat, combine the berries with sugar and lemon and cook down until it just barely drips off the spoon. Basically, if it starts turning into jelly, you've gone too long. For the ganache, heat about a cup of cream until just hot, not boiling, or it might curdle. As that's heating up, pour a splash of bourbon on our dark chocolate. Once that cream is ready, you can combine these ingredients, say a spell, and it should look a little something like this. The last layer of our Blood Moon and Delta Blues trifle, our rosemary-infused whipped cream, perhaps carries the most weight to it. I realize that doesn't fully compute since it's the top portion and also physically the lightest element. Symbolically, it makes sense. It all relates to the character of Annie, played by Wunmi Musaku. Annie is a hoodoo practitioner in Clarksdale and also Smoke's estranged wife. They lost a child prior to Smoke leaving town, and now that he's back, well, let's just say neither wish to be that far apart from one another again. At the same time, Annie's knowledge of the occult makes her aware that the Earth is but one plane of existence, and being forced to walk it for eternity as these vampires do is not a gift, but a curse.
Vampires is different. Maybe the worst kind. The soul gets stuck in the body. Can't rejoin the ancestors. Cursed to live here with all this hate.
After she's bitten by her own brother-in-law, Stack, rather than doom her to this life, Smoke drives a stake through her heart, allowing her to pass on. It proves to be the right decision, as when Smoke is fatally wounded in the film's final shootout, he sees she and their child are waiting for him on the other side. This is why this rosemary-infused whipped cream really completes our very complex and layered trifle. This element reminds us of peace and resolution that sits atop all the bitter beauty and unnecessary pain resting on Earth. Before we start whipping, we're going to want to remove those sprigs of rosemary. If you have any stragglers, we're also going to do a little strain. About 3 to 4 teaspoons of confectioner sugar. I like it on the sweeter side. And lastly, our vanilla extract. Remember to whip it on a low setting first and then higher as it starts to thicken. Once it reaches your desired consistency, chill it in the fridge as we start to build with our other components. In a clean tumbler, first place a red cake round, followed by a dollop or two of our blackberry compote. You can spread this out yourself, or just place a blue cake round on top and press gently. Once that's placed, pour on some dark chocolate whiskey ganache, and top with our rosemary-infused whipped cream. For a final touch and a little texture, I'm also going to add some crushed pecans, but it's probably still delicious without. In a mid-credit coda to the film, Coogler adds a little texture to what we've just seen in Sinners as well. After we've seen Preacher Boy and Smoke defeat the vampire but lose everything in the process, we come to find that Sammy goes on to live a long, fruitful life as a famous musician, with the older version of the character being played by real-life blues pioneer Buddy Guy. In a way, Sammy has gotten exactly what he wanted, but not without a cost. In another parallel, we come to find Stack has too, as he shows up to Sammy's bar with his eternal companion, Mary, looking almost the same as they did 60 years prior. While at the time their affections were forbidden due to the interracial nature of their relationship, the world eventually became a place where their romance could flourish. The flip side of this, of course, is that they may just end up living long enough to see that progress reversed, such as the mixed fortune of eternal life. Wizened by a long but mortal existence, Sammy knows this catch-22 well, and is willing to pass on further days offered by Stack for the sake of hopefully reaching his own final peace, just as Smoke and Annie were able to. He knows how you move through this world and how you survive it is important, but being bound to this earth? That was never for him. Ultimately, that's what this Blood Moon and Delta Blues trifle is showing as well. By combining this arrangement of contrasting yet complementary flavors, textures, and presenting them as one, this sweet treat reflects the ethos at the pumping heart of Coogler's Sinners, which is that we all contain multitudes. Good and bad, love and hate, joy and grief. Living a full life means living all sides of the spectrum. Maybe that even means sinning a little too. So grab a glass and a spoon, and brace yourself for one of the most filling movies in recent memory, Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
Lick that. Not too hard, not too soft either. You ever had a scoop of that ice cream from downtown?
Uh-huh.
About the same pressure you put on that. Like it tastes good, but you don't want it gone too quick, you understand?